Thousands of Ethiopian Jews return to Israel, the prophetic return of the Beta Israel. What if I told you that right now? An ancient prophecy is being fulfilled before our very eyes. It's not a prediction, it's not a theory, it's happening today. Thousands of people from remote villages in Ethiopia are boarding planes. They're not tourists, they're descendants of an ancient tribe, and they're going home to Israel. The Bible said this would happen, and now it is. They're called Beta Israel, the House of Israel. For over 2,000 years, they were separated from the rest of the Jewish world, hidden in the highlands of Ethiopia, preserving their faith, keeping the Sabbath, studying the law of Moses with no contact from the outside world. But in recent years, something strange started happening. The Israeli government began flying them home. Secret missions, desert runways, night flights. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants shall bring mine offering. Zephaniah 3:10. That prophecy is now happening, and nobody's talking about it. Let's go back. The Beta Israel are not new. They are old, very old. Some believe their roots go back to King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Others say they descend from the tribe of Dan, one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They followed the Torah for centuries. They practiced circumcision. They built synagogues. They celebrated Passover, even though they were surrounded by other religions. They believed one thing. One day they would return to Jerusalem. They waited for centuries, but when the world forgot them, God did not. In some remote villages, the Beta Israel didn't know the Second Temple in Jerusalem had been destroyed. That's how long they were cut off. Why would God scatter his people so far, only to bring them back now? What does their return mean for the rest of us? Let's fast forward to the 1980s. Civil war was breaking out in Ethiopia. The Beta Israel were in danger. That's when Israel launched a secret rescue mission. Operation Moses in 1984 brought over 8,000 Ethiopian Jews to Israel, by air, under total secrecy. But that was just the beginning. In 1991, Operation Solomon airlifted over 14,000 Ethiopian Jews in less than 36 hours, using 35 planes. Some of the planes had their seats removed so more people could fit. Babies were born mid-flight. It was the largest airlift of black Jews in history, and it was prophetic. I will bring thy seed from the east, and gather thee from the west. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Isaiah 43:5-6. First they came by secret flights, then they came by public campaigns. Now more are coming, because the return isn't over yet. This isn't just about helping refugees. This is about fulfilling God's eternal promise. You may ask, why is this happening now? Why is Ethiopia the focus of such a powerful prophecy? Let's read Isaiah 11:11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people from Cush, Ethiopia. The first gathering was from Babylon and Assyria. The second one? It's happening now. This passage isn't just poetic. It gives exact names: Cush, Ethiopia, Egypt, Elam, Shinar. The Beta Israel are the literal fulfillment of the second time prophecy. They were never part of the European diaspora. They were scattered long before. Now they're coming home, just like Isaiah said. If God kept this promise, after 2,700 years, what else is he getting ready to fulfill? The Hebrew word Cush appears 29 times in the Old Testament. It always refers to the region we now know as Sudan and Ethiopia. And in Isaiah 11, it's not symbolic, it's exact, and it matches their story perfectly. Why would God call people from such a remote place? Because he made a promise, and he never forgets it. If Zephaniah's prophecy is real, and it's happening now, that means time is short, because the gathering of the dispersed always comes before the return of the king. Now listen to this verse. Princes shall come out of Egypt, Ethiopia shall soon stretch out her hands unto God. Psalm 68:31. This is a declaration, not just a prayer, not a possibility, a prophecy. Ethiopia will stretch. And they are. Thousands of Ethiopian Jews lifting their hands in worship in Jerusalem, singing the Psalms of David, celebrating the feasts, learning Hebrew, stretching their hands toward the God of Israel. When Ethiopia stretches its hands, heaven gets ready to open. Psalm 68 is read every year during the Jewish festival of Shavuot, Pentecost. It's a psalm of praise and return. And now, Ethiopia is part of that return. This isn't just about planes and passports. This is about prophecy, about pain, about promise. Some of the Beta Israel walked for weeks barefoot. Some buried loved ones along the way. They arrived with nothing, but they had faith. And when they landed, they wept, they knelt. They said, "We are home." Imagine waiting your whole life to return. Your father never saw it. Your grandfather never dreamed it. But you touched the soil, and prophecy touched you back, if Isaiah 11 is being fulfilled. If Zephaniah 3 is in motion, if Psalm 68 is rising from the mountains of Ethiopia, then we are in the final days. Because the return of the exiles is always a sign. A trumpet blast before the coming storm, the dry bones are rising, the fig tree is blooming, and the scattered tribes are coming home. He that scattered Israel will gather him and keep him. Jeremiah 31:10. The return hasn't been easy. They've been misunderstood, mistreated, and sometimes forgotten. But their faith is strong, and their hope is stronger, because they didn't come for comfort. They came because they believe God called them. They kissed the ground when they landed. They sang songs from Psalms. They walked into the promised land with tears in their eyes. From walking barefoot through deserts to flying into Tel Aviv, their journey is hard to describe. But the God who parted the Red Sea is the same God who opened the skies. During Operation Solomon, a Boeing 747 set a world record by carrying 1,088 people on a single flight. And not one life was lost. This isn't just history, this is prophecy in motion. And it's not finished. Even now, in 2025, there are still thousands of Beta Israel waiting in Ethiopia. Some are living in temporary camps. Some have been waiting for decades to be reunited with family in Israel. But Israel has promised to continue the process. And Christians around the world are helping too, funding flights, supporting families, praying for God's promise to be fulfilled. Because this return is not just for the Jews, it's a sign to the whole world. The first wave came quietly, the next wave came suddenly. But the final wave may come during global shaking. Are other lost tribes coming back too? The lost tribe returns. The prophecy of Manasseh is being fulfilled. Picture this. A hidden tribe in the faraway mountains of India says they come from one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They sing Hebrew prayers. They rest on the Sabbath. They hope to return to their ancient homeland. But here's the part that will surprise you. The government of Israel agrees. What if we are watching Bible prophecy come true with our own eyes? Could this really be the tribe of Manasseh, coming back after 2,700 years? And does this mean that Bible prophecy is speeding up faster than anyone thought? In the northeastern hills of India, in the places called Manipur and Mizoram, there is a small group of strong people. They call themselves the Bnei Manasseh, which means sons of Manasseh in Hebrew. They are not new to this faith. They sing songs about the Red Sea parting. They tell stories about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, stories their grandfathers learned from their grandfathers and passed down for many years. Here's what's amazing. They didn't learn these stories from books. They didn't learn them from Christian missionaries. These traditions were passed down. But passed down from who? And how did they keep them alive for 2,700 years? Let me take you back in time to explain a mystery that goes back thousands of years. After King Solomon died, Israel split into 2 kingdoms. The northern kingdom, which had 10 tribes, including Manasseh, turned away from God. In 722 BC, the mighty Assyrian Empire came like a fire and attacked them. What happened next changed everything. The Assyrians didn't just take over, they scattered the people. 10 whole tribes were taken away and spread out across many lands. Most people believed they were gone forever, blended in with other nations and forgotten. But what if they weren't lost? What if they just kept moving? Here's the amazing path: Samaria, Persia, Tibet, Burma, India. The B'nai Menashe tell stories about a place called the Shinlung Cave, a spot their people stopped at during this long journey. For hundreds of years, they held on to the memory of their real home. They lived through exile, but they never forgot their purpose, and that purpose is now being revealed. But why Manasseh? Why is this tribe so important? Manasseh was Joseph's first son, born in Egypt during the time of great famine. When Jacob was near death, he did something no one expected. He adopted Joseph's 2 sons as his own. He said they would be part of the family and get blessings like the other sons. Genesis says that Manasseh got a double share, land on both sides of the Jordan River. Joshua talks about their special land, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to the far desert. But here's where prophecy becomes shocking. Why is Manasseh named in Revelation as one of the sealed 144,000? This answer will shake your thinking. Israel's history of exile reads like a long, sad story told over and over again. First came the Assyrian exile in 722 BC, 10 tribes scattered like seeds in the wind. Then the Babylonian exile in 586 BC, but those people came back home later. What happened next was different. It seemed like the end. Jesus warned about it in a scary prophecy. Luke 21:6. As for these things which you are looking at, the days will come when there will not be left one stone upon another which will not be torn down. In 70 AD, Roman soldiers destroyed Jerusalem. They burned down the temple. The people were sent far away. For almost 1,900 years, the Jewish people had no homeland. Through attacks, hatred, but then, against all odds, 1948, they came back. But that wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. In the 1950s, northeast India, a tribal leader had a powerful dream. In the dream, he saw his people's homeland, a land full of milk and honey, a land their ancestors had once called home. What happened next was unbelievable. Christian missionaries came to the area with Bibles in the local language, but they didn't make the tribe follow a new religion. Instead, something amazing happened. They didn't learn about the Bible. They remembered it. These stories weren't new to them. They were their own stories. The feasts they had celebrated for years were the same ones in the law of Moses. The songs they sang had Hebrew words. The way they worshipped looked like ancient temple traditions. They weren't being taught about Israel. They were remembering Israel. But just remembering was only the first step. What happened next changed everything. 2005, a moment that shook the Jewish world. The chief rabbi of Israel said the B'nai Menashe really were from the lost tribe of Manasseh. After 2,700 years away from home, they were finally seen as coming back. But government papers move slowly, and time was running out. May 2023, violence broke out across northeast India like a match to dry grass. What happened next was every believer's worst fear. Jewish meeting places were burned down. Holy Torah scrolls, some copied by hand over many generations, were destroyed in fire. Leaders had to run for their lives. People died. Ancient communities who had survived for 2,700 years were almost wiped out in one night. Michael Freund, who leads Shavei Israel, gave a serious warning to Israel's leaders. If they're not rescued now, we may lose them forever. The clock was ticking. Every day they waited, more lives were in danger. But here's what most people don't know. This isn't just happening in one place. What's happening in India is part of something much bigger, something amazing. Crypto Jews in Spain and Latin America are finding out who they really are after hiding it for 500 years. People in Nigeria are showing DNA that connects them to ancient Israel. Lost tribes in China still follow Jewish traditions after thousands of years. Jewish groups in Afghanistan were rescued in missions that took everyone's breath away. Look at the map. Do you see the pattern? From Ethiopia's high mountains to India's green hills, from Nigeria's flatlands to the wide lands of Central Asia, they're all coming home. Another group that is coming is the Ashkenazi Jews. It's hard to talk about Jewish history without mentioning pain, and nowhere is that more visible than in the story of the Ashkenazi Jews. They lived in Europe for over 1,000 years. They built communities. They built synagogues. They contributed to science, medicine, music, and culture. And they were hunted. From the pogroms in the Russian Empire to the iron fists of the Soviet Union, the Ashkenazi Jews faced one wave of destruction after another. Imagine being again behind the Iron Curtain. No Hebrew, no Torah scrolls, no public worship, just silence, just survival. And then, a shift. The Soviet Union collapsed in the early 1990s. The gates opened, and the Jewish people who had been locked inside were free to go home. Over 1 million Soviet Jews flooded into Israel during the 1990s. It wasn't glamorous. They left behind broken economies and communist control for a land they had only heard about in whispers. But they came, and they didn't just bring their suitcases. They brought their dreams, their history, their scars, and their faith, buried deep beneath years of suppression. When the walls of empires fall, the hand of prophecy begins to rise. Mind-blowing fun fact. More than 40% of Israel's Russian-speaking Jewish population today came during this prophetic return. Entire neighborhoods, cities, and industries were transformed by their arrival. Could the fall of the Soviet Union have been allowed by God, not for politics, but to fulfill His word? And here's the part most people miss. For decades, these Jews were cut off from Jewish culture. But something happened when they came to Israel. Their identity was restored. Their children learned Hebrew. They read the Torah again. They discovered the God of Abraham, not just as history, but as home. The return of the Ashkenazi Jews is not just about a homeland. It's about a spiritual awakening that's still unfolding. When the ashes of history settle, the roots of prophecy start to grow. The return of the Ashkenazi Jews is one of the greatest prophetic miracles of the 20th century. And yet most people missed it. But now you've seen it. And the question is, what will God do next? There is also the return of the Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews. Let's go back to the moment when Israel became a nation in 1948. It was a miracle. But not everyone celebrated. In fact, in country after country across the Muslim world, it ignited rage. And almost overnight, Jewish communities that had lived in Iraq, Yemen, Syria, Egypt, and Libya for centuries, some for nearly 2,500 years, were suddenly under attack. They were no longer welcome. Homes were burned, synagogues destroyed, people were imprisoned, or worse. And so they ran. The lands that once gave them shelter became lands of sorrow. But God had already prepared a way out. Many had to flee with nothing but what they could carry, sometimes even walking across borders in the middle of the night. But here's what most people don't know. God was already moving behind the scenes. The newly formed Israeli government launched secret rescue missions. They had no time to waste. Operation Magic Carpet was launched in 1949 to rescue Jews from Yemen. Over 49,000 Jews were flown to Israel in under a year. These flights happened non-stop, using military planes and old cargo jets. Some planes landed on dirt runways, others had to navigate sandstorms. It was one of the largest airlifts in history. Operation Ezra and Nehemiah followed. evacuating over 120,000 Jews from Iraq. This was 2/3 of Iraq's entire Jewish population. They had been in Iraq since Babylonian times, but now they had to leave in a moment. Mind-blowing fun fact! In Yemen, many Jews sold everything they had to buy donkeys, just to walk hundreds of miles to reach secret airfields. Many believed the Messiah was coming during the journey. In Egypt, ancient Jewish communities completely disappeared. Synagogues were abandoned, cemeteries erased, names forgotten. But God remembered. They weren't just escaping danger, they were being gathered by God. Their flight was prophecy. Their rescue was fulfillment. These Jews, Mizrahi and Sephardic, didn't come to Israel with wealth. Many lived in tent camps, cooking over open fires, struggling to learn Hebrew, trying to adjust to a new life. They faced discrimination, hardship, and cultural gaps. But they stayed. They built. And today, over half of Israel's Jewish population is Mizrahi or Sephardic. They brought their music, food, language, and faith, and now shape the identity of the modern state of Israel. Israel's top military, political, and cultural leaders today include second and third generation from eviction to airlift to identity, from ashes to roots to fruit. The world may forget who they are, but God never forgot where they belong. But each one is part of something far bigger than themselves. The final ingathering, the prophetic homecoming. And when the last tribe steps off the plain, the next chapter begins. When the last exile comes home, the king may not be far behind. From exile to return to restoration. Then comes redemption. If God is fulfilling this prophecy with perfect accuracy, what does that say about the rest of his word? It means Jesus is coming, and the clock is almost at 0. Another group returning is the Western Jews. Let's pause here, because this group is different from the others. The Jews from the West aren't fleeing war zones or famine. They're not running from collapsing empires or desert oppression. They live in developed nations with comfort, freedom, education, and stability. But they're still leaving. Why? Because something deep in their spirit says, it's time to go home. This isn't a mass exodus. It's more like a quiet trickle that's becoming a powerful river. Over the last few decades, thousands of Jews from the United States, Canada, France, the UK, and even Latin America have made Aliyah, the Hebrew word for ascending or returning to Israel. They've left behind careers, houses, cultural familiarity, generations of roots, and many of them do it not out of desperation, but out of calling. They believe they are part of something bigger, a prophetic awakening. The most powerful moves of God don't always begin in fire. Sometimes they begin in the still, quiet whisper, "Go home." But not all leave by choice. But there's another layer to this. Many of these Western Jews are not just moving for survival. They're moving out of spiritual hunger. They're sensing that the world is shifting, that prophecy is alive, and that something is drawing them to the land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Some have come after visiting Israel and being overwhelmed by the sense of belonging. Others come because they see the signs: political instability, social decline, global tension, prophetic alignment. They know God is moving, and they want to be where his promises are unfolding. Could it be that the Jews from the most privileged nations are being stirred, not by danger, but by destiny? If the Jews of the West are returning, not out of fear but by faith, then the timeline of prophecy is further along than we realize. And it's not just individuals. Whole families are returning. Teenagers are enrolling in Israeli schools. Doctors are retraining under new certifications. Hebrew classes are filling up with new immigrants from Los Angeles, Toronto, London, and São Paulo. It's quiet, it's steady, and it's prophetic. This is not just about one group, one country, or one cause. It's about alignment. Western Jews are hearing something. It's the sound of prophecy whispering through history. Come home. First came the vision, then came the declaration. Now comes the fulfillment. One plane, one suitcase, one family at a time. And what about those who haven't returned yet? Many Western Jews are still waiting, watching, or resisting. But as the world changes, as pressure builds, as prophecy intensifies, they may soon realize Zion is not just a word in a prayer, it's the future, and it's calling them back. So now that you've seen the return of Beta Israel from Ethiopia, Bnei Manasseh from India, Ashkenazi Jews from Eastern Europe, Mizrahi and Sephardic Jews from the Arab world, Western Jews from free nations, you have to ask, what prophecy are we watching unfold right now? And more importantly, are you ready for what comes next? Because the regathering of Israel isn't just about Jews, it's about Jesus. He's coming back to Jerusalem, and the people are returning just in time to meet him. Will you recognize the moment when the final tribe arrives, or will you miss it? The return to Israel is real, and so is the return of the King. Don't wait to make your move, because prophecy waits for no one.